Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm filming books that are worth the hype. These are books that I've heard widely discussed on BookTube, basically. When I thought of this list, these are just the ones that popped up easily, no questions asked, love them, had to recommend them. So let's just go and hop into our first one. Our first one was very widely talked about on YouTube last year especially, and even into this year, and I just finished it a couple days ago. I checked it out from my library. It's Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldtree. Now this is a cozy fantasy, so there's not really, like, normally I'm a big cozy mystery reader, so I didn't know what to expect because I didn't know what the plot was going to be, if there wasn't like a mystery, but it's supposed to be a very cozy, like high fantasy, low stakes book is kind of how it's described. So basically this takes place with our main character Viv, and she is an orc, and she has been living a life, a very like kind of violent life. She's been like a mercenary, a bounty hunter, you know, very like big adventurer, and she's looking to live a cozier, more settled life instead of always being on the run and traveling a bunch and, you know, having to, you know, keep one eye open when she sleeps, that kind of thing. And she falls in love with coffee, which isn't very well known throughout most of this fantasy world, and she decides to settle down in a town after doing a lot of research on it, and she wants to open a coffee house. And it's like a really strange concept, right? But it was fabulous. So this book follows Viv, you know, building and troubleshooting and getting the coffee house off the ground. It involves her hiring one of her employees here, Tandrae, who's actually a succubus, but she is also somebody who's trying to escape kind of the stereotypes associated with her. I don't know if that's considered like a race or breed. With her type, I guess. Just like Viv is trying to escape the stereotypes around orcs being, you know, very violent, kind of aggressive, a group of individuals. So they are working on this coffee shop together. There's, you know, different plot points, but overall it's pretty cozy. It has a really heartwarming message. It's really interesting. I don't know how they made it so cozy with not a ton going on plot-wise, but still made it interesting. It's really unique, and there does come some times that really test Viv and her desire to kind of handle things like she used to do with more like a violent or aggressive approach, and now she's really trying to turn a new leaf, and it kind of follows her on this journey, and it's just, I highly recommend it. I could go on, but it's incredibly cozy. If you know more books like this, I would love to hear it, because I don't read a ton of fantasy. I didn't even know cozy fantasy was really a thing until I kept hearing everyone talk about this. I had to pick it up, and I love it. It's so good. A mystery series that gets a lot of hype here on YouTube is the Tita Rossi's Kitchen Mystery Series, which starts with Arsenic and Adobo by Mia P. Manansala. I love this. I feel like this is one of the most recommended cozy mystery series. I see a lot of like kind of hype around it, and it is just fantastic. Basically, our main character is a Filipina American, and in the first book she is working in her Tita Rossi's kitchen, which is their family restaurant. I really like that you get to learn a lot about different like Philippine food, which I'm not personally super familiar with, but I've really enjoyed learning more about throughout the series. I think the mysteries for the series have been really solid. I think the characters are especially interesting and fleshed out. I love learning about our main character, and her friends are all very interesting. Her family, you know, they get along, then they don't, but, you know, just a typical kind of family, I love you, you know, you get on my nerves, but I love you kind of thing, and I love it. I think it's so incredibly interesting, and it really has a good continuity that some cozy mystery series lack of. I think some cozy series can really, like, the characters remain the same in every single book, like they're more static, and it's more the events around them, like the mystery that takes place, which is good. But this particular series does, like, the characters do evolve really well throughout it, and I really enjoy that. So definitely check out Tita Rossi's Kitchen Mystery Series. That is another one. A thriller that I think really deserves the hype is The Guest List by Lucy Foley. That's one of the first contemporary thrillers I read. I read it for the first time last year, and I was floored. I think it's fantastic. The basic premise of this is that we know a murder from the very beginning. We know a murder has taken place at this wedding, but we don't know who did it. We don't even know who is actually murdered, and it goes back in time from different points of views for different people who were like in the wedding party, the bride, the groom, and it follows them along leading to the events up to the discovered body. And It's fascinating. I usually don't love books with a lot of points of views. I kind of like to follow one character around, but Lucy Foley does an excellent job of keeping it very clear who is who. It's easy to follow along. I was on my edge of my seats for this thriller. I read it in under 24 hours. Like, I couldn't put it down. I had to know who did it, who was dead. Like, I needed to know. It was really fascinating. She also has a very interesting knack. I've read two books of hers since, and she has a knack for making almost all of her characters deeply unlikable. Like, they're very, very flawed to terrible people. Like, nobody is flawless in her books, but she usually has one or two sympathetic characters, but somehow she makes it highly entertaining. Usually I like to enjoy and like most of the characters, but she does it really well where it's really entertaining, and I highly recommend it. It was a page turner. I couldn't put it down. Another mystery series that I hear a lot about is the Ice Cream Parlor Mystery by Abby Collette. This is the second book in the series, A Game of Cones, which I'm just starting, and I've read the first book in the series, which got a lot of hype, A Deadly Inside Scoop. And I really like this series so far. Like I said, there's only 3 books out so far in the series, so there's not a lot to go off of, but I really enjoy this. Look at how beautiful the spine is on this. I think this is just a fabulous, fabulous spine. But basically this takes place with our main character, Bronwyn Cruz, who is now operating her family's business, which is the Cruz Creamery. Absolutely love that. And in the first book, A Deadly Inside Scoop, she is trying to get this ice cream parlor reopened and like getting going in the middle of winter, because it kept, like, the opening kept getting pushed off with, like, the renovations she was making. She comes from, like, a marketing background, so she's trying to really spruce up the ice cream parlor and make it a little more modern while keeping its, like, kind of retro and, like, wholesome vibes and everything. Her family is really interesting. I love learning about her grandmother, who has passed on, but Bronwyn is really taking over what she used to do, which is coming up with new flavors and combinations for the ice cream parlor. She also has 2 different friends that kind of helped her sleuth in the first book, and they were really entertaining to read about. I really enjoyed it. I thought the mystery was pretty good. The setting is extremely cozy. If you like ice cream, it's really great. I did recommend A Deadly Inside Scoop recently in my Cozy Winter Reads video. I'll leave that above if you want to check it out, because it does take place during the winter, so even if an ice cream mystery seems a little funny for winter, the first book definitely has the winter vibes. I'm not sure when this one takes place, but I'm excited. I'm very excited to get reading on this one. Another thriller that I really think is worth the hype is Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. This was a Book of the Month release, like, late last year, and it got a lot of hype as a result because a lot of people get the Book of the Month, and I checked it out from my library, but I love it. I thought it was really interesting. The basic premise of this is we're following Daisy as she visits her grandmother, who is celebrating her 80th birthday, and her grandmother lives on this remote island. She's the only person who, like, lives out there, basically, or, like, very few people live out there. And she has this huge, like, estate, and all of her family is coming back for this big birthday celebration, and they're all estranged from each other. Like, they have a very rough relationship. Many of them haven't talked in a long time. Like, the mother and father are separated. Daisy's siblings are, like, kind of estranged and at each other's throats all the time. And Daisy and the grandmother do have a little more special connection, and you kind of get to see some interesting events play out, because basically that first night after they arrive, they're all having dinner together, and the grandmother just announces at the end of the meal, and she's very wealthy, and a lot of the family members have been depending on her to basically die so they can inherit her money, which is really awful. But the grandmother basically at the end of the dinner is like, well, psych guys, I'm not leaving any of you any money, and they all freak out. They're all, like, in uproar, they're all extremely angry, and it's pretty crazy. She's not leaving money to, like, most of them, and they're, like, you know, fights are breaking out, everyone's upset, and then somebody actually mysteriously dies. And kind of similar to Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None, people start to kind of mysteriously have accidents or die, and Daisy is left wondering, is someone trying to take their revenge on the grandmother for taking them out of the will? Like, what is happening here? And it's fascinating. It had some amazing, like, twists and things to it. I highly recommend it. I don't want to give too much away, but I enjoyed it. Another cozy mystery series that really gets talked about a lot, I feel like, at least with people who love cozies on YouTube, is the Bakeshop mystery series by Ellie Alexander. And I wholeheartedly agree that, you know, it's fantastic. It basically takes place with our main character, Jules. It's in Ashland, Oregon, and in the first book, Jules is coming back from working on a cruise ship as like the pastry chef. She returns home to Ashland, Oregon, where her mother is running the family bake shop, which is called Tort, and she decides to help her mother, and she's staying there while she's trying to sort things out. And she's a fabulous cook and baker, so it's a delight. Like, the food scenes are always scrumptious. I love that. And they also always include different, like, this one has fluffer nuffer sandwiches and chicken cacattery, cherry almond hand pies. So there's always recipes in the back too if you really like that for the culinary cozy mysteries. But the books in the series, I would highly recommend reading them in order. It's not a cozy series that I would jump around in like you can with some others. Jules really evolves as a character throughout the book, so you really get to know each of the employees at the shop. You get to know about Jules' mother and her relationships. You get to learn about some of the other people in the town. Ashland, Oregon is not only like this really beautiful town for different seasons and holidays, but they also have a Shakespearean theme that runs throughout it, so they have a lot of Shakespeare like themed events in town, which is really amazing. The mysteries are always really well thought out, and the cozy vibes between the setting of Ashland, Oregon and the food, you can't beat it. Like, the setting is what really sells me on this series. I think it's just delectable. It's so good. Okay, and last but not least, another thriller, Lock Every Door by Riley Sager. Now, I've had 2 books I've read by him, and one of them I hated. Like, 1 star, I couldn't stand the ending, and that was The House Across the Lake. However, Lock Every Door was the one I started with, and I gave it 5 stars. I thought it was fantastic. So take that as you will, but Lock Every Door for me was personally very, very interesting. It basically takes place with our main character being hired to apartment sit at this like high-end ritzy apartment, and basically they need someone to fill in for like 2 months or something because the apartment is like in between leases and like tenants, and they always want somebody living there, I guess, like to make sure the apartment is okay. And so our main character decides to take them up on it. She's in a really bad pinch, like financially, doesn't have anywhere to go, and they're offering pretty good money for it, so she decides to move into this apartment. But it's got some strange rules, and she can't help but feel a little odd about some of them. Like, you can't have guests over. There's a lot of interesting rules that make her a little uncomfortable, but she's like, you know what, for this kind of money, I can deal with it. Until she finds out that the apartment sitter before her disappeared under mysterious circumstances, and then she starts to kind of freak out a little bit, and she's noticing more and more odd things are happening in this apartment, and like things with like people disappearing, and she's starting to really freak out, which, can you blame her? And she's like, but I need this money, kind of like, can I hold out for this? And all these strange things keep happening. The suspense in this just keeps building and building. Like, there's so much dread as I'm reading this. I'm just sitting there like, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen? I'm glad I read it during the day, so I had hours to process it before I was actually going to sleep, because if I had read it before bed, I would have had a hard time falling asleep. So I really enjoyed this. It was very thrilling. The setting, it's not entirely like a closed setting because she can leave the apartment, of course, like during the day and stuff, but it is like kind of a closed setting, and the fact that all the stuff's happening within the apartment building, so it's really interesting. I really enjoyed it. I highly recommend it. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. Please let me know if you've read any of these books. Do you think they're worth the hype? And let me know what your favorite hyped book is that you think is worth it. You know, because sometimes when you see so many people loving a book, you get a little suspicious, and so I like to know which ones are really worth the hype. So let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I do post new book content, especially in the mystery, cozy genres, so definitely hit subscribe, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!